So today we're going to talk about Ma'oz Tzur, its meaning, and the melodies. Last year we talked about the sixth stanza of Ma'oz Tzur, and we discussed it, a lot of drama around it. Today we're going to focus on the melodies of Ma'oz Tzur. But to refresh your memory, we're just going to talk a little bit about the content of this hymn. And our presentation will be based on an article by Professor Yitzhak Melamed. He's a professor of philosophy at Johns Hopkins University, and he published an article called Ma'oz Tzur and the End of Christianity. Very interesting, very worthwhile to read it. It's on the Torah.com. And so Ma'oz Tzur, what is Ma'oz Tzur? It's probably the most famous Hanukkah liturgical hymn, maybe of all the holidays. I think it's reached a status that no other piyut, which is the Hebrew word for a liturgical poem, has reached. Even though many have been written for different holidays, for Shavuot and Sukkot and Pesach, but Ma'oz Tzur is a household name, whereas the others only for, academics or people who are interested in piyutim. So when was it written? It was written in the 12th, 13th century, and it has 6 stanzas. Now, most people, they sing the first stanza and they stop, but I want to show you the full 6 stanzas, and then we'll talk about the meaning and the melodies. So, and I can accredit my father, alav shalom, that I know these 6 stanzas because he insisted that we sing all of them every candle lighting, every day of the 8 days of Hanukkah. So by now I know it by heart. Do you see the slide, Ma'oz Tzur, with the English next to it?
Yeah.
Yes.
So the first stanza, that's the famous one. Everybody knows this one and sings this one. But look, there's also the next stanza, Ra'ot Sav'a Nafshi, and then Devir Kodsho Evi'ani, and then Krot Komat Berosh, Yevanim Nikbetzu Alai, and finally Chasof Zoa Kodshecha. This is the questionable one. Now, if you look at the first letter of each stanza, Mem, Reish, Daled, Kaf, and Yud, they spell a name. What name? If you can imagine it a little bit, Mordechai. So he formed an acrostic to tell us his name. But we don't know much about who this Mordechai was. So let's talk a little about who this Mordechai is. Do you see the slide where it says lived 13th century Germany?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yes.
Okay. Do you see the slide we're not sure?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So one theory is that he's related to somebody who was martyred in the First Crusade in 1096. And this is going to have an important fact, because we'll see how it's inferred and how it's in the poem, how it affects his writing. Another theory is that it's a Mordechai ben Yitzchak Halevi, who was a poet in Italy. So we don't know much about him. But what we do know is the melody. We're all familiar with the melody. Let's start with an amusing video. And as you watch the video and see the words, I want you to think about the meaning of the words. So why is this an amusing melody? Because it was recorded in the Israel Philharmonic when Ruvi Rivlin was the president of the state of Israel, and he came to celebrate with the Israel Philharmonic on their 80th birthday, and it was during Hanukkah, and he was invited to light the Chanukiah, and he has done it in his whole life probably. He knows the Ma'oz Tzur by heart. He knew the blessings and the Ma'oz Tzur by heart. And so he proceeded to start singing Ma'oz Tzur. But the conductor of the Philharmonic, Zubin Mehta, he wanted to accompany the Ma'oz Tzur, and Rivlin did not wait for them. And so there was a moment of hesitation and confusion, because Zubin Mehta wasn't Jewish, he was Indian. but very supported the Israel Philharmonic and was their conductor for 50 years. But he's very respectful, so he doesn't know what to do. You'll see, and it's very amusing. And as you see it, watch, read also the words. I'm trying to share both. Do you see both Ruvi Rivlin and the words?
Yes.
Yes. So let's watch together.
אבותינו בימים ההם, בזמן הזה. מעוז צור ישועתי.
Ruvi Mehta is a little upset. Wait. I need the Philharmonic to join you. Shh, quiet, please. So a very nice accompaniment. I like this orchestration. Very celebratory, wouldn't you say? Very dramatic orchestration for Ma'oz Tzur. So with this dramatic accompaniment in mind, let's turn our attention to the words. And the words, it's poetic Hebrew. It's not easy. You give this to an Israeli, he'll know some words, and some words he'll say, what the heck is this talking about? Some words are easy, maybe Beit Tefillati, house of prayer. So let's go, and it's full of allusions to verses in the Bible, as most Piyutim are. So I'll show you a translation. And by the way, this is not what in English we call Rock of Ages. That's a different song. Okay, so that's not what Ma'oz Tzur is. This is a poem written by Jastrow that we sing to the same melody, but it's just different words. And you'll see, there's no corresponding here. There's a house of prayer, Beit Tefillati, but in the English, there's no house of prayer. There's no altar. There's no sacrifices. There's no Hanukkah Mizbeach, right? There's no word Hanukkah here. It's a different song. So let's go back to the original Hebrew Ma'oz Tzur. And so this is not it. We're not interested in that. We're interested in this song, Ma'oz Tzur. So the first line is Ma'oz Tzur Yeshuati Lechana El Shabeach. Refuge, rock of my salvation, to you it is proper to offer praise. Aleinu Leshabeach Adon Hakol. We know that from our liturgy. We say that every day. And Yeshuati, that's going to come into play later. Yeshuati, my salvation. The next line is Tikon Beit Tefillati V'sham Todah Lezabeach. So our house of prayer shall be prepared, shall be established, and there we will offer thanksgiving sacrifices. So Todah by itself could be just thanks, saying thank you to God. But when you have the word Nezabeach, like the word Mizbeach, clearly it's a reference to the sacrificial offerings. Then comes the very interesting line, Le'et tachin matbeach mitzar amanabeach. And what does that mean? So we'll skip that for a second. And then the final, Az egmor b'shir mizmor, Chanukat HaMizbeach. Then I shall conclude with a psalm song, Hanukkah HaMizbeach, the inauguration or rededication of the altar. So let's go back to the third line here. What is matbeach? That's the question. When you prepare in the time, the time that you will prepare a matbeach from the tzar, from the enemy who is menabeach, who is barking. Menabeach, linvoach is the Hebrew verb for barking. So what are we going to? What is God going to prepare for the barking enemy? If you show this to an Israeli, he would say kitchen. You know, it looks like mizbach, but it's not. It's a biblical word. So let's see what other words come from this root. Tet bet chet tabach. So we have this in next week's part in the Parsha of Shabbat Hanukkah. Utzvoach tevach ve'achen. Joseph says to his steward when the brothers come and they're sitting down to eat, slaughter some slaughter animals and prepare them. So you see now the meaning of tvoach is to slaughter animals. And in Isaiah, it's not referring to animals, it's referring to people. This is a section in Isaiah where he's talking about Belshazzar, the evil leader of Babylon, who ransacked Jerusalem. And Isaiah is praying that God will prepare a slaughtering block for his sons. And you see the word here, matbeach, together with the verb hachinu. And that's where he took it from, right? Le'e tachin matbeach, tachin, prepare. So he's clearly alluding to this verse, but he's not talking about Belshazzar, the author of Ma'oz Tzur, who lived in the Crusades and saw thousands of Jews being murdered by Christians, all in the name of Christian love. He's talking about them, but he can't say that. So he's alluding to a verse in the Bible that talks about something else altogether.
Cool.
Questions? Any? Okay.
No,
So-
comments. That's a cool comment. You can't, you're afraid of your life because of the Christian crusaders. So you refer back to something in biblical, in
Yes.
history. Yeah, that's cool.
Excellent. Yeah, right. And so then you can always say, no, I'm just referring to some, event in the past and during,
Yes, some
Babylonian.
idol
Yeah,
worshippers. Yes.
right. Yeah.
But
Now,
it reminds of why we do the Haftorah, because we couldn't do the Torah. So we have
Yeah.
the fake out.
Right. So other words with this root are mitzbach, kitchen, tabach, chef, tevach, massacre, beit mitbachayim, slaughterhouse, and my favorite, the Moroccan salad, matbucha,
Oh,
which looks like this. So you see, it's already beyond the actual slaughter. But even a vegetarian person, he calls his kitchen mizbach, even though he's not slaughtering any animals and he's not eating any animals. So, or the word tabach, you can be a tabach, a vegetarian tabach. So, in some cases, it's already it's broadened the meaning to include any type of food. But the original meaning, as we saw, is to slaughter.
oh,
So,
Shalom Shelf. They got that salad.
yeah. Yeah, it's a little bit spicy to my taste, but and I think it doesn't include any meat. Yeah, this
I
actually
think
just
you're right. Vegetarian. Yes.
it's vegetarian. It's just tomatoes and hot peppers and so you see they didn't slaughter anybody for this or any animal for this matbucha. But now back to the verse in Ma'oz Tzur. Le'tachin matbeach. Why is he using that word slaughter when you prepare a slaughter? That's very, very violent. How would you, if you were to say to him, if he would come and consult with you, I want to say that God will punish the enemies. What word can I use? What would you suggest? That's less violent. It's too gory, the word slaughter. What would you suggest? I'm going to write your suggestions. You can say in
Onish.
English. What?
Onish.
Onish. So punishment. So onish. Okay. Any onish. Any. You'll see in a second why we're doing this exercise together. Any other? When you blank, then I sing a psalm for the inauguration of the altar. When you blank the enemies, I forgot to add here to the enemies. So what would you say? What blank would you put? If you wanted to sound less
Subdue.
okay, subdue. So in Hebrew that would be maybe
לנצח.
לנצח. Okay. And
Thwart,
any other
thwart,
idea?
thwart. In other words, that's
Oh, thwart. Nice. Okay.
that's
Or
So tikel,
overcome, yeah.
overcome. Okay. You'll see in a second. Okay. So we have a great question here. Why not? Why does it resort to this word slaughter? So I think we have to understand um, the historical context. Like we saw in the beginning, he lived during the Crusades. Maybe even his family members were martyred, were killed by the Crusaders. And so he's asking for divine revenge. And he's saying, look, we're suffering a slaughter right now. And he's not saying slaughter all of them, slaughter the cities, slaughter the children, the women. No, just slaughter those who come to slaughter us. And if you look at it in that context, in the context of tens of thousands of Jews who were murdered and burned and exiled, then I don't think it's beyond the pale. I don't think it's too violent. Now there's another more prosaic reason, and that is I call this there's a rhyme and a reason. Let's look at the ending. Lechana el shabeach, v'sham toda nezabeach, and then mitzal hamenabeach and chanukat hamizbeach. So he needs a word that has beach at the end. Now let's go back to the words you suggested. Oh, none of them have beach, onesh. Oh, lenatzeach actually, but okay, that's close. But it doesn't have the bet, the beach. So whoever suggested subdue, that's a pretty good one.
But how would that work in the whole phrase? How would you say like menatech in a whole phrase? Like leachin nitachon?
Nitzachon, right?
So how do you say it?
We would say bevakasha or leet she'anachnu ninatzeach, when we will win the tzal hamenabeach, the barking enemy. So I think, but what I tried to do with this exercise to show you sometimes in poetry, you have to understand there's all kinds of restrictions in terms of phraseology, rhyming, and the pattern, and the poet wants to make it sound like a poem, and so you don't have to take it too literally, and you can even explain that in a footnote, because what I saw is that some translations were so afraid of translating what it means, which is slaughter, that they didn't. For example, Rabbi Sachs, here's his translation. He translated, when you silence the loudmouth foe.
oh.
Interesting, right? Today we call this wokeism. It's you change the word so not to offend people. But as we've seen, I don't think it offends anybody when you look at the historical context and you realize it's a poem and he needed a word that rhymes with all the beach. So I'm quite disappointed actually in Rabbi Sachs, because he knows, what you could say, what's the difference? Silence the enemy, slaughter the enemy, but he knows very well, he's a Talmid Chacham, he knows exactly the root, matbeach means slaughter. Others translated butchery, which is again, that's pretty much the meaning in Hebrew. And you want to stay true to the author's intent, to the author's, because you're translating, you're not doing a commentary, you're doing a translation. I think it's important to stay loyal to what he was writing in his time, and that's how we learn. Also, we learn about his era.
And Shammai, wasn't he also? I mean, he's using the dedication of the Mishkan as his background. The dedication of the altar,
Right.
and that was bloody. I mean, it was a very bloody place. So. He's being true. The author is being very true to, Jewish history.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Yes, true. So that's a very good point. We have to also be loyal to our history. So if I would say, if I'm printing a siddur, I would do, Chabad and OU. They wrote the word slaughter. Let's see, Safaria. Let's see what they did. I think it's the guy's name is David Horwitz. I'm not sure if it's his translation. So you guys see the Hebrew, and then look at the English, verse 3, when you have prepared a slaughter of the barking foe. And when we print the siddur, we can make an asterisk and a footnote if we feel that some people, especially non-Jews, will find that, why are the Jews talking about a slaughter? And then explain all this. And that way we get the message across of what the poet was trying to convey. So we do have translations on the internet that stay true to the author's intent. So we said we're going to talk about the melodies, and let's see. So that was the famous melody that everybody recognizes, but there were other melodies as well. Last year we talked about the problem of the sixth stanza, so we're not going to cover that this year. But I want to talk.
Question when you have a break.
Yeah, go ahead, Bill.
Sephardim. So I don't think any of this is in their tradition, right?
They have their own melodies, but yes, it is.
Oh, okay. So
yeah.
Okay.
So you heard the melody with Zubin Mehta. Here are the notes. What would you say? How would you characterize this melody if you were to fill in the blank? This is a blank melody. What would you say?
To me,
Triumphant.
What?
Uplifting, triumphant.
Uplifting. Okay, triumphant.
Yes, triumphant, uplifting. Yes.
Now we'll see other melodies. Notice that we called the presentation today melodies. But what is the origin of this melody before we get to the other melodies? So let's listen to a cantor who analyzed it, and you'll be surprised where this came from. It's a bit ironic where this melody came from. So this is Cantor Berger, and he's going to explain to us.
So let's talk about the melody itself, right? This melody that you have a sheet in there which has these slides written out onto one page about the sources of the melody. Dr. Eric Werner, who was a musicologist and profound scholar in the history of mostly Ashkenazic Jewish music, taught at HUC, drew out these pieces that seem to echo pieces of the original Ma'oz Tzur melody, following upon the work of Abraham Zvi Idelson, the great sort of original Jewish musicologist.
This is page 7 of the packet for those of you who are following, starting with enumerating from the cover, page 7.
Thank you, Rex. So what we're looking for in this is not to be able to identify that there is a piece of music that Ma'oz Tzur was stolen from, but that we're seeing that the phrases that eventually built up the complete melody of Ma'oz Tzur were in the air of 15th and 16th century Germany. So interestingly, the very first hymn written by Martin Luther, right, in one of his first acts after putting up his big 95 thesis and all that kind of stuff, was to begin writing hymns in German for the people to be able to learn sort of his new way. So his very first hymn follows this exact melody, da 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 da, right, which you can see there on the page. And according to Werner, etc., he's quoting from an even earlier thing of 1483, this piece on the bottom. So we can see that this melody is in there. And you have in your packet, just for the sake of enjoying that, the way that hymn of Martin Luther has passed down to us in English from the songs Ancient and Modern, or hymns Ancient and Modern, which you have the full English hymn there. But the relationship to Ma'oz Tzur ends pretty much after that first line. But for future reference, that entire hymn is quite lovely. Sadly, that melody is no longer sort of the mainstream melody for that hymn text.
And you see the words here, it's German, you see?
Here's the second phrase.
It's all German words.
And Werner finds it in a piece from 1540. Right, we have Van Konig Maximilian geboren das Reich. Right, so you hear the same da 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 da, the same exact sort of phrase repeated there. So again, I'm not saying that someone stole. I'm saying that the idea is that these kinds of phrases were in the air and give us a sort of idea of when ish this melody may have been put together. The third phrase, Azekmor Bashir Mizmor, we find in a piece from 1544, which again, we're just saying that this is, and this one is a real folk song. Apparently, it's a song about a woman who is very mischievous and lying to you. So it's kind of funny that kind of phrase would find its way into our very sacred song. But all three things put together,
this is interesting,
were clearly a recognizable melody. And what we know is that in this book called the Chavas Yair, or Shut, which means Sheilot Teshuvot, or the Book of Responsach, Chavot Yair, published around 1690 by Rabbi Yair Chaim Bacharach, he gives a whole set of liturgical poems. And in that set of liturgical poems, he has a Hanukkah piece, which he mentions in it, and I'm going to try to read for you. I know the Hebrew here is written in what's called Rashi script, and it's very unclear and difficult to read. But he says, "Vishar Zkeni, Aviv Zkeni." He's talking about my father, the Gaon, the genius, when he was so many years old. He was the rabbi of the community of Kiglin in Germany, and he would, and V'nahag Kavod Adoni Avi, and my honored father, who of blessed memory, used to sing this particular melody, Lizamro Bechol Levei Hanukkah, every night of Hanukkah, Vani Al Charav, and I too, in his memory, sing this melody, B'nigun Ma'oz Tzur, to the melody of Ma'oz Tzur. So that's to say, if a person in 1690 can say, I sing this in the melody of Ma'oz Tzur, that, by the way, there is a recognizable melody for Ma'oz Tzur.
So I find that very interesting that, yes, it might have originated with phrases from, Christian songs and maybe folk song, German folk song, but already in the 17th century, it's a recognizable melody in the Jewish world that this Rabbi Bachrach is referring to and calling it a Nigun Ma'oz Tzur. So not, 19th century, or it even goes further back to say that this is really, part of our history, dates all the way back then. These rabbis, very, very learned scholars in Torah and Talmud, did not write notes. So this Rabbi Bachrach didn't leave us the notes that we can know for sure, 100%, that he's referring to what today we call, but it's very likely that this is the melody that he's referred to. And that's why it has received such fame and acclaim in the Jewish world, because it dates back so many. But next week, so that's for today, and next week we're going to cover other melodies, both Ashkenazi and Mizrahi, that sing this song. And it's very, very interesting. And then we'll play a game, because we don't have time today, where you'll see a short snippet, and you'll have to decide and guess from which country this melody is. So join us next week, and thank you all for joining us today.
Just an observation. The name Bachrach, it's a real Yekka name.
As in Bert.
Yes,
Another musician.
because in Baltimore, from Germany, there was this family Bachrach. It's really
okay.
a root name. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.